This is the last Amiga exclusives episode before Christmas, so let's not waste any more time and see what games never left the system. Dunwalder is an obscure Polish isometric view action-adventure title, not unlike more well-known Cadaver or Heimdall. The game takes place on Mars in 2998 within the confines of the Martian space base. The transporter D-86 with which you were traveling was attacked, and you were betrayed by your now former colleagues Mary, James and Al. The game revolves around you trying to find them to seek justice. So, to unleash your inner demons of rage and enact the sweetest and deadliest of revenges upon them. The base that you trapped in is composed out of 5 sub-areas of communication center, laboratory, prison, mine and nondescript side building. And these are full of various enemies, human and cyborg alike, which for whatever the reason are all bent on killing you. But other than the combat, you also do quite a lot of your typical adventuring, so you'll be solving simple puzzles, finding and talking to NPCs, and also performing tasks for them in exchange for useful items or information. Graphically, Dunwalder is actually pretty good, definitely above average for 1994 when it came to Polish games, and the sound design is decent too. Sadly, however, it only ever came out in its original language, and since it leans heavily on the adventuring, its eventual popularity was rather limited. Overall, it feels like a fun, even if unpolished Polish title. Wow, this time this terrible pun was not intended. And it's a game worth checking out if you know the language. If you don't, treat it as a curiosity to listen about in this video and then forget forever. Commodore officially ceased to exist in the first half of 1990s. It was a sad time and most of us, hardcore Amiga fanboys and fangirls, long believed that someone will buy their assets and resurrect the system, so that it could come back stronger, better, faster, leaner and cooler than ever before. As we know now, it never happened. But it also never stopped enthusiasts from releasing games for the system years after it was long declared gone. Bubble Heroes, released in 2000, is one of those games. Simply put, it's a Basta-Move clone, but arguably at the very least as good, if not better than the original was. The idea behind the gameplay is incredibly simple. You complete increasingly more demanding puzzle levels by shooting color bubbles from the bottom of the screen at the top, where there are more of these arranged in various patterns. If the one that you shot touches others of the same color, and there's at least 3 of them in one chain, they pop and disappear. You know, like bubbles do. There are 3 different characters to choose from: Brave Knight, Cat Girl and Prince turned into a frog, and all of them have their own unique special powers helpful during gameplay. There are also 3 game modes to tackle in Bubble Heroes: Story Mode, in which your completion of levels follows the game's plot and sets you on a course to planet Radia to free 3 nymphs from Evil Gonzal's grasp, a villain of the game so to speak. Then there is Championship Mode, in which you duel against all characters from the game as AI opponents. And finally, Deathmatch, where you and a friend, or an enemy, can battle it out against each other in split-screen side-by-side action. Despite being released so late in the Amiga's life, or long after it really, Bubble Heroes is amazing, and if you have it in your collection, it's a gem to behold, and will guarantee countless hours of fun with friends. Believe it or not, but with another Polish game in the video. This time it's terrible though. And yeah, I really mean it. It's a first-person shooter that just failed at everything it could fail at. For starters, rather than the series of levels following a particular plot and offering a sensation of some kind of progression upon completion, you're served 20 generic-looking arenas filled with numerous enemies. There's no puzzles, no secrets, nothing interesting in them really, and you're not even looking for the exit. All you do is kill the monsters. And when you kill them all, you are moved to the next arena. Rinse and repeat. There are 20 of these boring-ass levels in Monster and they never really get better. So, you go through them one after another expecting, nay, hoping for something new and captivating, and in the end, all you really get is repetitive mess, uninteresting enemies, awful level design and disappointing presentation. Graphics are beyond terrible. Not only they look bland, but are also illogically put together, like featuring trees that grow straight out of concrete brick pavement for instance. And sadly, that's not all. There are no ceilings of any kind in any of the stages, and everything other than the monsters is in various shades of brown. Sounds and music are below average too. Worst of all, the pacing is shit. I mean, first 15 levels are very easy, a tutorial like difficulty easy, but the last 5, oh my days! It's like someone suddenly realized what they've done in the first bunch, and instead of fixing them, just turned the dial all the way up for the last few. Monster is bad. Don't play it. Unless you're an FPS aficionado and just have to sample them all. Then yeah, you can risk it. Blob is a quintessential Amiga exclusive. It's a faux 3D puzzle platformer that is rather difficult but not artificially so. So you never feel as if you were cheated out of your life when you lose it. And all failures and deaths are yours and yours alone. The game is viewed from bird's eye perspective and you're placed on a platform with similar ones on the same level, below and above you, and you can move freely between them. The gameplay revolves around you completing a particular objective and then finding the exit, pretty much every single time. Set objectives, however, are really varied and there's a whole slew of them. Some will see you having to either paint a certain number of blocks Q*bert style, or rescue other blobs and bring them to the exit, and others will have you finding a particular required object. And that all is just the tip of an iceberg that the game is, because there's more. Some platforms that you jump on are special and may crack after a jump or two, others are sticky, severely limiting your jumping capabilities, some reveal invisible blocks and some even shoot at you. And that's just a small subset of them all. All that put together, with a rather nice even if unspectacular presentation, make Blob one of the most addicting experiences of 1993 on the Amiga. It may not look like it on the footage, but there's just that one more time feeling to it that sees you coming back to Blob time after time again, even if you keep failing at it. It's a definite recommendation. Vital Light is easily one of the best puzzle games to ever grace the Amiga, and same as Tetris, it draws its addictive characteristic from very basic but also incredibly challenging hectic gameplay mechanics. So, its entry threshold is very low, as it will take you just a minute to understand the game and everything about it, but mastering Vital Light, especially that it contains 80 increasingly more demanding levels, will take a lot of time and many repeated stages. I can pretty much guarantee it. So, you control a paint gun on a roller at the bottom of the screen and you have 5 different paints attached to it at all times. Your task, technically speaking, is beyond simplistic, and all you have to do is paint sets of blocks falling at various speeds from above in the same color. When you do, they are removed from the screen. That's it. Nothing more to it, really. So, the strategy is mainly based in twofold, making sure to switch to the right paint color fast enough and to apply it to the correct strip of blocks. As more often than not, there will be numerous of these falling down at the same time. Like most great puzzle games, Vital Light is incredibly simple to understand, but in the same time very challenging to beat, and many of the latter levels will feel devilishly hard, to the point of one seemingly random small mistake being enough to break your entire game. So be fast, but also be precise. The presentation in terms of graphics and sound design is excellent, and it's not something that we see often in the genre, so it was worth pointing out. If you like those fast-paced puzzle games, make sure to check Vital Light out, as it's a true hidden gem in Amiga's vast library of exclusives. Blueboy is not a great game. In fact, it's rather bad. Fortunately, most other games in the video are better. Anyway, despite not wooing anyone with anything really, Blueboy is an interesting and unusual title, as it's a sort of mix between tower defense and missile command with a very direct control scheme. You play as the teacher of Blueboy, a 5 cents worth superhero, a sidekick without a true hero to follow, a budget superboy, cause Superman is way too good to be compared to him, a wannabe without skills and powers to follow through. But what you don't lack is the will. And despite your shortcomings, you do your best and you're trying to save humans from aliens who are abducting them at an alarming rate. No doubt to perform those forbidden backside probing we keep hearing about in the pop culture. So, you fly around the levels, disposing of the alien scum and saving humans. There's a defender-like radar on the screen showing you where humans and aliens are at all times, so that you can stay on top of things and plan your routes most effectively. If an alien manages to capture a human, you have to promptly get to them, eliminate said alien and save the person, basking in the glory of your heroics. Keep in mind that to progress and carry on through the game, both are required, keeping yourself and at least some of the humans alive. Freed humans can be released from the cocoons aliens entangled them in order to obtain various boons, like extra weapons, smart bombs or additional lives. So be smart, be fast, be effective, be the superhero. When all aliens are eradicated and there are still some humans left alive on the level, the wave is considered complete. For every city that you defend, there are 2 waves, and then the boss fight with an alien mothership. Just as I stated initially, Blueboy is not great, but if you wanna try something literally unlike anything else, it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Black Viper is my boss's wife, cause her soul is dark and she's a vile venomous creature and not a human. Also a great name for a Batman's villain. I'm Batman! Sure. But it's not the same. I meant other... okay. So, Bruce asked me to tell you that he has his poison ivy and it's basically the same thing. He didn't really care to hear me out when I tried explaining that it was just an intro, but whatever. Black Viper, the game, takes place in the post-nuclear war dystopian future and is a late Amiga motorcycle-based racer/shooter. Also, so that we get it out of the way, not a very good game. Not terrible, just not great. You play as one of the so-called freedom fighters who travels from city to city trying to recapture them from the hands of the mercenaries. To do so, you have to get to them on open roads with an allotted time limit. It would be pretty easy if that was all, so naturally you are constantly attacked by numerous enemy vehicles, slowing you down. You know, post-apo Mad Max style. Fortunately, you can shoot them all, so that's what you'll do most of the time. Each next level is more demanding than the last, throwing more resistant enemies at you, but in between the stages you can upgrade your bike too. So if you keep doing it, the difficulty curve should stay more or less the same throughout your entire playthrough. So, Black Viper sounds cool and should be fun, right? But somehow it isn't. It's hard to say why, it just feels lacking. I mean, just check it out yourself and let me know if you agree. I'm sure that you will. Enemy Tempest of Violence is a 34-level strong side-view action-adventure game for 1 or 2 players. Each level is composed of a series of single screens with no scrolling and presents you with a set of unique objectives to fulfill before the time runs out. And they can be rescuing survivors, destroying alien eggs, finding weapons, or killing certain specific aliens, to name a few. They are randomized though, so each playthrough will mix and assign them to different levels, keeping the gameplay fresh for a tad longer. While you go after your objectives, enemies in the form of various alien species will try to stop you, so naturally you have to dispose of them, once and for all. Preferably as fast as you can. Mechanically speaking, even despite very limited one-button controls, there's quite a lot that you can actually do in the game. You can obviously run and gun, slide, jump up, far and down, switch weapons, crouch, arm and throw grenades, pick up ammo, weapons and other items, operate various devices, enter passages, and even issue instructions to other characters if in-game situation allows for that. You could say that Tempest of Violence is your Flashback 2.0. The most prominent feature of the game, however, are easily its lush and beautifully animated graphics. There are shadows to basically all characters in the first plane, bullet casings fly around, dead aliens lie rotting away everywhere, and there are numerous easily recognizable weapons and items for pickup. Enemy Tempest of Violence wins in both categories, looks and playability. And only the fact that it released in 1997, long after Amiga was officially dead, prevented it from being widely successful. As if it dropped in, let's say, 1992, 1993, I could see it move some serious numbers and be quite profitable for the devs and publishers. Before Team 17 Swarms, we had Scorched Tanks. And while Scorched Tanks may not look as good or be as accessible, it's an amazing deep mechanically title and one I probably spent much more time playing than Worms while I still had an Amiga. Simply because it came out earlier. Now, as I said all that, I see that it's a bit misleading and a lie, as I have an Amiga even today. But I meant at the time when it was still an officially supported prospering platform, and not an old yellowed retro machine connected to artificially keeping it alive life support system in the form of few of us still remembering it that it is today. Anyway, Scorched Tanks is really well designed and a blast to play, especially with up to 3 friends on a single system. The levels are randomly generated and composed of mainly hills and valleys made out of destructible terrain. There's a selection of easily over 70 different weapons to choose from and dozens of different kinds of shields. Weapons can range from simple explosives of various power through homing and under-the-earth surface tracing ones to even scattering bombs or nukes. And there are also special ones that can either provide protective walls for you or bury your opponent under a huge pile of dirt, effectively changing their whole strategy for the next turn, as attacking possibilities from under the surface are rather limited. Shields are quite ingenious too, because they're not only lowering the damage sustained, but can offer additional special features, like bouncing off of incoming enemy projectiles from their surface, or magnetically repelling metal shots directed your way, among many others. Scorched Tanks is a game that would never win any awards for graphics or sounds, as these were serviceable at best, despite even displaying 64 colors on 1 MB chip machines, but in terms of gameplay alone, it's one of the most memorable experiences on the Amiga. By now, if you've been watching these videos of mine for a while, you should know that Amiga gamers were very hungry for good FPS titles in the mid-90s. And despite platform being seemingly incapable of handling these, developers proved that if there's a will, there's a way, and we ended up with bucketfuls of games. Sadly, most were disappointing for one reason or another, but at least there were plenty enough of them for players to be able to find one that they would enjoy. From a technical point of view, Project Battlefield was interesting as it could run on any Amiga provided it had at least 1 MB of RAM. Now, was it smart attempting to tackle it on such a platform? Not really, but you could, and in 1995, for a remainder of all Amiga gamers, it was kinda important. In Project Battlefield you play as RoboCop wannabe, though arguably a better version of the original as you're not rid of your memories, I think. And you will have to track down and overpower improbable in real-life numbers of terrorists and their robotic military servants, over 5 pretty big stages depicted as overrun Biden government buildings. While all the staples of the genre are present in the game, so exploration, gunfights against countless enemies, teleports, keycards and hidden passages, as soon as you start playing on anything other than the rather powerful system, the shortcomings of Project Battlefield's engine will become more than obvious. Not only the game is displayed in a stump-sized window, but also runs like crap, and having expanded system is a must for any kind of comfortable play. What's worse, the requirements seem to have no basis in the presentation, as it's seriously disappointing when compared to other titles in the genre we've covered on this channel to date. I mean, if you look at Alien Breed 3D or Breathless, Project Battlefield looks extremely dated. Not to mention the Citadel or Groom Deluxe, which both run much better than it does. But, since the game's Polish, a Polish proverb will apply nicely to the climate the game released in when all of us wanted to play Doom on our Amigas and couldn't. If you don't have what you like what you have. Sure, logically it's incorrect, but proverbs are not based in logic, and by 1995 the remaining Amiga gamers would do pretty much anything to emulate the FPS experience, and henceforth the games like this one were not only still made, but also still played. Damn, Amiga sure had an interesting library of games. Perhaps not all were groundbreaking hits, but many were unique enough to be worth experiencing, and there was no other system that it could be done on than the Amiga. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. Smash them if you have to, it helps more than you could ever know. Also, I would like to thank you and all my amazing Patreon and YouTube members for helping this channel keep going. And last but definitely not least, I would like to thank all the wonderful folks who record and upload playthroughs, let's plays and other retro-centric videos here on YouTube, because they help to preserve the games that would have otherwise be long forgotten. So thank you.